wasn't until I got to the station and that they saw me choking. Now I'm here. A life sentence on some shit I ain't even do. So you gonna help me?
From the very first moments of Under His Influence, what appears to be a modern-day story of opportunity and digital fame slowly morphs into something far deeper, far more complex, and ultimately far more unsettling. The film's protagonist is Diamond, a young woman whose life until now has been defined by privilege, aimlessness, and a certain restlessness that only genuine purpose could fill. She is the embodiment of her generation's contradictions, digitally celebrated yet emotionally unmoored, wealthy by inheritance yet uncertain of her own worth, connected to thousands online yet aching for someone who sees her specifically, not just her posts, not just her curated persona. Diamond's world shifts dramatically when a seemingly innocuous message from an inmate named Sadiq lands in her social media inbox. At first glance, the message is just another stranger's plea for attention, an unheard voice in a sea of digital noise. But Sadiq's message is different. It carries a quiet confidence, a tone grounded in something deeper than thirst for likes or fleeting internet fame. He claims he has been wrongfully imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, and he asks for help. In a world where viral challenges, campaigns, and online movements can gain traction overnight, Diamond wonders if this story could be her next big cause. Her interest is initially casual, almost experimental. She frames helping Sadiq not as a grand mission but as something that might add texture to her feed, something that might give her followers a narrative that feels real. But their first exchanges change something. His letters are thoughtful, human, and articulate. There's an honesty to his words that begins to strip away Diamond's performative layers, revealing a longing inside her that she has been reluctant to confront, a desire to matter beyond likes and curated images. So she begins to visit him in prison. Their first meeting is awkward and tinged with uncertainty, but it is also electric. For Sadiq, Diamond is a lifeline, a link to the world beyond steel bars and concrete walls. For Diamond, he is an enigma, older, composed, with a story that doesn't align with the tragic caricatures of incarcerated men she has known only through headlines. As their interactions deepen, so does their emotional connection. What begins as empathy turns into fascination. And what begins as fascination turns into affection. Diamond finds herself falling for Sadiq, a man whose life she barely knows, whose reality she has not fully verified, yet whose presence begins to feel indispensable. Driven by a complex mix of genuine concern, romantic infatuation, and a craving for purpose, Diamond launches a public campaign to prove Sadiq's innocence. She uses her platforms, mobilizes her followers, and turns her carefully crafted influence into a weapon, for justice, she tells herself. The campaign quickly snowballs. News outlets pick it up. Celebrities share her posts. Lawyers reach out. The public rallies behind their story. And then, in a dramatic turn, Sadiq's conviction is overturned. The victory is supposed to be the climax, the moment where truth and justice prevail. Instead, it's only the beginning of a different kind of unraveling. Once Sadiq is free, the dynamic between him and Diamond subtly shifts. There is gratitude, certainly, but there is also something else, a guardedness, a reticence that wasn't there before. Small inconsistencies begin to surface, details in his story that don't align, memories that shift under questioning, truths that seem just out of reach. Diamond brushes it off at first, unwilling to entertain the possibility that her deepest convictions about him might be flawed. But then the evidence starts to accumulate. Where once there were only fragments of doubt, a pattern begins to emerge, one that hints at a version of Sadiq that Diamond never imagined. The man she helped free, the man she defended passionately on live streams and in interviews, begins to reveal shadows beneath his charisma. Friends and supporters who once celebrated their love look on with uncertainty. The public campaign she built, the one that gave her a sense of identity, is now threatening to become the very trap that ensnares her. Behind closed doors, Sadiq's behavior shifts. He becomes controlling, possessive, and increasingly secretive. The vulnerability that once drew Diamond to him now feels harnessed for manipulation. Her emotional world, once so fluid and public, becomes a private battlefield where trust and doubt collide. Every decision he makes, every question she asks, becomes loaded with emotional consequence. She begins to second-guess everything, her instincts, her judgment, her very sense of reality. Amid all this, Diamond's own life begins to fracture. Her relationships with friends and family strain under the weight of her obsession and her studio audience's expectations. She grew into her role as an influencer thinking it was a platform for good, for inspiring, uplifting, affecting change. Now she wonders if she ever truly understood the difference between being seen and being understood. She wonders if her desire to rewrite someone else's story blinded her to the deeper truths of her own. The film doesn't shy away from the psychological weight of this transformation. Diamond's inner conflicts are laid bare, her yearning for genuine love, her fear of insignificance, her intense craving to be heroic in a world that values spectacle over substance. In Sadiq she thought she found someone who needed her, instead, she discovers someone who needed her belief more than her presence. And there is a subtle but powerful difference between the two. As the narrative reaches its final hours, the truth about Sadiq's past unfolds in ways that are both shocking and heartbreakingly ironic. The very man Diamond helped win freedom was not the innocent she believed him to be, at least, not entirely in the way she imagined. What emerges is a truth that shatters her illusions, that justice and innocence are not always synonymous, that public perception is a fragile thing easily swayed by narrative, and that love, especially love born in digital flames, can sometimes blind us to the darker contours of human complexity. The climax is not triumphant. It is quiet, internal, and emotionally devastating, a reckoning rather than a confrontation. Diamond stands at a crossroads, looking at what she has gained and what she has lost. Her online empire remains, her followers still adore her, but inside she senses an emptiness she hadn't felt before, a hollowness where certainty once lived. She thought she had saved someone, instead, she realizes she was the one being reshaped, influenced, and ultimately undone. The final scenes follow Diamond as she returns to a life that feels both familiar and profoundly altered. No longer driven by the desire to prove something to the world, she begins, tentatively, to seek internal truths. Not truths built for public validation, but truths that stand alone in quiet moments of reflection.